Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I uploaded a video, and tonight I wanted to talk a bit about video games and their music on vinyl. And I know what you're thinking. Video game music on vinyl, why? Well, there's a community for everything. I mean, like it's a niche. Like there are people who like to listen to jazz, there are people who like to listen to rock, to pop, bossa nova, you name it. And there's a community of gamers, such as myself. I'm not an active gamer, but I did grow up with classic video games from the 80s, and so I'm partial to hearing some of this music on vinyl. And what I'm showing you here is my current collection of video game music on vinyl from a game called Castlevania. Starting from left to right, you're going to see that I have Castlevania for the NES, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, and Super Castlevania 4 for the Super Nintendo. And these are all pressings by Mondo Tees. A little disclaimer here, Mondo Tees is not sponsoring this review, my video. I don't get anything by mentioning them. I'm not necessarily promoting them, but because their name is right there, I'm just, I better address it. So I'm not getting paid, I'm not getting sponsored, so just wanted to get that out of the way. But when you go to mondotees.com and you're looking for all the products that they sell, amongst those products there are vinyl for video game music. And I decided to get the first 4 Castlevania games, the soundtrack on vinyl, because I like Castlevania so much that I just wanted that music. And you're gonna ask tons of questions like, it's 8-bit music. How can 8-bit music sound any good on vinyl? Well, I don't know what these guys did. I don't know how they did it. All I know is that when you listen to the original music from the Nintendo or the Super Nintendo, it sounds like 8-bit music or 16-bit music if we're talking about Super Castlevania 4. But when you put these on the turntable, they actually sound great. It's 8-bit music again, but the quality of sound is so awesome that you can't just play one track. You have to play the entire album. And these are all beautiful pressings. Like for example, Castlevania is a red vinyl, Castlevania 2 is a green vinyl, Castlevania 3 is a nice orange vinyl, and Super Castlevania 4 is a gray with some splatter pattern, which is awesome. So not only do they look great, the art is incredible. You get an experience out of it. They actually made it so that you can have an experience listening to video game music. But what started this craze of having video game music on vinyl? I'm gonna dare say that there's actually one album that started it all, and I think it's this one right here, Pac Man Fever. Pac Man Fever. I'm sorry about the lighting. I know that there's a huge lighting in the back. I pretty much can't do anything about it for now. But Pac Man Fever by Jerry Buckner and Gary Garcia. Buckner and Garcia. And now this album was released all the way back in 1982, right in the middle of these crazy video game competitions and these crazy video game craze that everybody was hooked on. Back then there was no internet, there was no social media, it was different times. If you wanted to play video games, you needed to go to the arcade, because chances were that your parents didn't have enough money to buy like Commodore 64, or an Atari 5200, an Atari 2600, or an Intellivision or a Coleco. You had to go to the arcade. It was cheaper to just get $2 worth of quarters and try to stretch those $2 in quarters, maybe less, maybe a bit more, in the arcade, than to just buy a brand new video game console. And remember, if you didn't know, just in case you didn't know, 1982 was the year that a lot of the personal computers, like the Commodore 64, came out early in 1982, and later there were other computers like the Vectrex and some Atari personal computers, and like all of that, plus the intense releasing of many games like at the same time, many other factors led to the 1983 video game market crash. But before that, everybody was in the arcades, like putting quarters in, and Pac Man was a very, very popular game. There were others like Galaga, Donkey Kong, Centipede, Space Invaders. And Jerry Buckner and Gary Garcia decided to record an album based on video game music. And so what they did was they created a full-on, again, different to the other like Castlevania albums that you see there in the back. The Castlevania albums, they're just the music from the video game. But Pac Man Fever is an album that is based on the games themselves. So you get 10 songs based on the games themselves, like Pac Man Fever, Froggy Slammin', that's based on Frogger, Ode to a Centipede, that's based on Centipede, Do the Donkey Kong, and then on side 2 you got Hyperspace, The Defender, Mousetrap, and Going Berserk. These were all very popular games at the time, and they created songs based on those games. And the songs have sound effects from the actual games, and the only way they could do that back then was go to the arcade, play the game, or record somebody else playing the game and record the sound effects. And that's the only way they could do it back then. So whenever you hear the songs from this album and you hear effects from the video games, that's the actual arcade game. And what's funny about this album is that Buckner and Garcia wanted to re-record the album in the late 90s. I think it was 1999, probably 2000, between 99 and 2000. For whatever reason, they could not have access to the original masters. And let me just real quickly show you. This was pressed by Columbia Records. 1982 CBS, was pressed by Columbia Records. It's not a bad pressing. It's actually a good quality pressing. The record sounds great. It was well mixed. But for whatever reason, in the 90s, when Buckner and Garcia wanted to re-record the album, they could not have access to the original masters, and apparently they had to pay a lot of money to gain access to the masters. And for whatever reason, they just simply decided to re-record the entire album, and instead of recording the original sound effects from the video games, they just recreated the sound effects with the instruments. So if you own the CD that was released for Pac Man Fever in the late 90s, early 2000s, you're gonna notice that it sounds different. It doesn't sound the same as the original album. So if you're into this sort of stuff, this is kind of like a novelty item, you're going to be pleased that the original pressing features original sound effects from the actual video games, whereas the CD release is kind of a recreation. if you will. And the only way you're gonna get the original sound, the original experience, is if you get this on vinyl, or if you have the cassette, well, the cassette or the 8-track. And what else can I say about this album? If there's information out there about another album that is based on video games that is previous to Pac Man Fever, let me know down in the comments below. If there was a follow-up album based on other video games that I don't know about, please let me know in the comments as well. And also, if you're wondering how do the Castlevania albums sound, I'm gonna include a link down below in the description for Super Castlevania 4. I uploaded like the first track of Super Castlevania 4, which is the main theme of the game. And I'm also going to include, I mean, you can look for the original Pac Man Fever song in the official channels, but if you don't want to surf around, I'll include a link down below pointing to another upload I made for Pac Man Fever, the actual first track of the album. And you can compare how Super Castlevania sounds and how Pac Man Fever sounds. If you've never heard of Pac Man Fever and you're gonna hear it now for the first time, I hope you enjoyed. If you think that I missed something, please let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching this video. If you want to subscribe, I don't upload very often, but when I do, I try to upload content that may be relevant or interesting. So let me know in the comments below what you think I missed, what you think I should review next, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.